I grew up in a house where my name was always an afterthought. It wasn't that anyone ever said I didn't matter. It was the silence that said it for them. A silence that settled in the space after Vanessa's name was called for the third time at dinner, when my achievements sat unopened in the mail, or when my birthday cake was still frozen because no one remembered to take it out in time. That year, I turned 10. A small age, you might think, but old enough to understand when you're not the star of your own story. The morning started like most. Vanessa storming down the stairs, ponytail bouncing, screaming about how she couldn't find her white cheer socks. Barbara rushed out of the kitchen, spatula still dripping pancake batter. "Check the dryer, honey, and good luck today, sweetheart." Vanessa had a tryout for junior varsity cheer. She was 13, confident and commanding, a whirlwind in sneakers. Everyone knew it. I sat quietly at the table, the birthday card I had made for myself folded neatly beside my orange juice. No one noticed. Ronald, my stepfather, came in from the garage with grease on his hands and a plastic bag dangling from one wrist. "Look what I picked up, Ness." He grinned, pulling out a shiny pink duffel bag with silver trim. "For your tryout." "Oh my God, thank you," she shrieked, hugging him with all the flair of a TV commercial. He chuckled, patting her head like she was a prize pony. I watched. Still, a quiet part of me hoped he might glance my way. Maybe he'd pull something else from that bag, even a piece of gum, a happy birthday, Em. But he didn't. He ruffled Vanessa's hair one last time and disappeared into the hallway. Mom once told me, some people love quietly, others just make more noise. I suppose she meant that as comfort. But at 10, I wasn't looking for quiet love. I wanted someone to shout for me, the way they shouted for her. Later that evening, I handed Barbara my report card. Straight A's. I had worked hard for those grades, extra reading under the covers, math worksheets during lunch breaks. She took it, nodded absently while stirring spaghetti sauce. "That's great, sweetie. You're so dependable." Dependable. Not brilliant. Not exceptional. Not wow. Just predictable. Like a good pair of socks. Vanessa burst through the door moments later, cheeks flushed, ribbon clutched in her fist. "I made the team." Barbara dropped the spoon. "That's amazing." She pulled Vanessa into a hug, sauce splattering on the counter. Ronald appeared from nowhere with a high five. The kitchen turned into a victory parade. I stood by the fridge, invisible again. My report card sat alone on the counter. At dinner, they laughed about Vanessa's new routine and how flexible she was becoming. Ronald mimicked one of her jumps. Barbara nearly choked from laughing. No one noticed that the cake still sat in the freezer, untouched. It wasn't until dessert that Barbara seemed to remember. "Oh, Emily, wasn't it your birthday today?" My fork paused midair. "Yes." She winced. "I'm so sorry, baby. Things were just so crazy with tryouts. We'll do something special this weekend, okay?" I nodded, even smiled. What else could I do? Later that night, I sat cross-legged on my bed, sketchbook open on my lap. It was something I'd started a year ago, drawing outfits I imagined on mannequins, flowing dresses, detailed seams, textured collars, my own little world in graphite and shadow. Earlier that day, my art teacher had pulled Barbara aside after school. I'd seen her eyes widen as Miss Carter unfolded one of my sketches. "Emily has a gift," she had said. "With support, she could really develop this." Barbara had smiled politely, thanked her, and changed the subject. Now, in the dim yellow light of my lamp, I stared down at the page. It was one of my best. An asymmetrical gown with lace across the shoulder and a hemline like a wave. I had spent 3 days on it. I reached to tear the page out. To show someone. Maybe Vanessa, even if she'd just nod and say cute. Or maybe Ronald, who sometimes seemed kinder after a long day. But then I remembered what I heard that afternoon when I walked past the living room on my way to grab my sketch pad. Barbara's voice, hushed but clear. "Vanessa's the one who'll make it big. Emily? She's sweet, but quiet." That pause, that trailing off. that small, sinking dismissal. I looked at my drawing again. Then I closed the notebook, slid it under my bed, and turned off the lamp. For the first time, I didn't show anyone what I'd created. My love for design grew in the shadows, just like me. Tucked away in corners between textbooks and piles of laundry, my sketchbook became the place where I could breathe. While Vanessa danced in spotlights, prom queen, honor roll, summer internships in New York, I stitched dreams into paper with a mechanical pencil and a hope that maybe, someday, I'd be seen. At 17, I had grown used to the quiet. Not silence, just the kind of quiet that settles in when you stop expecting applause. Vanessa had come home for the summer, her suitcases heavier with stories than clothes. Barbara welcomed her like royalty, her voice lilting with pride. "My baby girl, back from the city. We missed you." I stood at the top of the stairs, watching them embrace. No one looked up. Vanessa's laugh echoed through the house like a chandelier. Beautiful, expensive, fragile if you listened close. She still smelled like perfume I couldn't pronounce. Her heels clicked on the tile like punctuation marks in a novel I wasn't invited to read. Later that evening, I opened the email alone in the living room. A partial scholarship. The Pacific Northwest Institute of Design, Seattle. I pressed my hand to my mouth, eyes wide. The words blurred from the tears I didn't expect. When I told them at dinner, I started with hope. I got in. It's not full ride, but it covers most of the tuition. I can apply for housing assistance. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. You? Fashion? You don't even wear eyeliner. Barbara chuckled under her breath, as if that counted as a response. Sweetie, that's wonderful, but maybe you should think about staying home another year. Help around the house, things are tight. I blinked. But this is what I've been working toward. Ronald cleared his throat. We've already spent so much on Vanessa's tuition. Let's not rush into debt for some artsy thing. Vanessa sipped her water, looking pleased. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw my sketchbook across the room and demand they see the hours, the passion, the late nights shaping my future in silence. Instead, I swallowed. I nodded. I waited. That night, I sat with Lena in her car, parked near the grocery store where she worked part-time. Lena had been my only friend through high school, the kind who listened without pretending to have all the answers. Her hands trembled as she fumbled with her phone. She borrowed $500, Lena whispered. Said she'd pay it back after her summer job started. That was 2 months ago, Em. My chest tightened. Vanessa? Lena nodded, eyes watery. I'm behind on rent. My mom doesn't even know. It didn't make sense. Not at first. Vanessa had always had everything. But then I remembered her sudden shopping trips, the expensive shoes, the Uber rides when our parents thought she was using the bus. And I remembered Lena giving her rides, buying her lattes, believing in her. Vanessa's smile, the one that charmed rooms, felt suddenly venomous. That night, I pulled the sketchbook from under my bed. It had grown fat with years of ideas, each page a rebellion. I flipped past the dresses I once designed for dolls, now replaced by structured blazers, embroidered collars, sharp silhouettes with defiance in every line. I opened my laptop. The email still glowed on the screen. I read it twice. Then, with trembling fingers, I clicked Accept Offer. I didn't ask. I didn't tell. I just did it. No one needed to know. Yet. For now, it was mine. Because some strings, even the ones tied in family, needed to be cut quietly. He noticed my designs before anyone else did. And that's what made it dangerous. The studio was half lit, the harsh fluorescence replaced by a dim orange glow from the single lamp above my workstation. It was nearing midnight. The campus hushed, save for the hum of machines and the occasional groan of a coffee maker from down the hall. My final project was scattered around me. Sheets of raw silk, twisted paper structures, and a single mannequin cloaked in asymmetry and ambition. Unconventional, a voice said behind me. In the best way. I turned. He was leaning in the doorway, sleeves rolled up, a sketchbook tucked under one arm. Mark. He'd transferred in last year, brought in as a design assistant for a visiting professor. Older than most of us, with a confidence that felt more earned than forced. His smile was knowing, like he saw something in me I wasn't ready to show. You think? I asked, brushing lint off the shoulder seam. He walked closer, circling the mannequin. You're not designing for validation. You're designing to say something. I flushed. Sometimes I feel like I'm shouting into a void. Then let's make it echo, he said, grinning. Come on, coffee's on me. That became our pattern. Late nights blurred into early mornings, hands stained with ink and fabric dye, conversations skipping from Bauhaus to Heartbreak to burrito places still open after 2 a.m. He'd critique without condescension, offer praise without cliché. When he talked about my work, I believed it mattered. Lena wasn't as charmed. He flirts with everyone, she said one morning, arms crossed as she eyed him across the quad. You're not the first girl he's helped fix her hemline. I laughed it off. It's not like that. But it was becoming something. A slow gravity pulled me toward him. I caught myself sketching more, taking risks, stretching fabric in new ways. Like confidence itself was a textile, and he helped me weave it tighter. Weeks passed. My senior project took shape. A collection inspired by the erosion of memory. Soft fabrics decomposed by sandpaper textures, frayed seams that told stories. The department hosted an internal competition before graduation, the winner earning a mentorship with a major label in New York. I entered with little hope. I won. When they called my name, I stood frozen, barely hearing the applause. And then Mark was there, arms around me, lips brushing mine in a moment so electric it stole breath. I knew you would, he whispered. That night I called home. Barbara answered on the third ring, her voice tired. I got it, Mom. The mentorship in New York, and there's someone. His name's Mark. A pause. Then, don't let that distract you. Men ruin focus. No congratulations, no pride. Just a warning shaped like a scar. I swallowed the sting and changed the subject. Mark didn't just want to celebrate. He wanted to build. We sat on the rooftop of our favorite cafe, Seattle's skyline a mess of blinking lights behind him. His breath smelled like espresso and cinnamon. With your eye and my sales brain, he said, we could build something incredible. Just us. It wasn't just a compliment. It was an offer. A future. A door I didn't know I was desperate to open. And I didn't yet see the price. The last person I expected to see at my door was the sister who disappeared. I stood frozen in the threshold, raindrops misting the air between us. Vanessa's hair was darker than I remembered, damp from the drizzle and cut into a sharp, shoulder-length bob. Her coat clung to her body like it was too thin for the chill. But her expression, open, eyes glassy, was the same mix of performance and sincerity I remembered from when we were kids and she needed something. Em, she said, breath fogging the air between us. Can we talk? I didn't move at first. Her voice brought back echoes. Childhood birthdays she forgot. The sting of her teasing, the way she once mocked my sketchbook like it was a diary full of bad poetry. But there she was, shivering on my doorstep. No luggage, no umbrella, just a duffel bag and the kind of look someone rehearses in the mirror. I just need a place to land. A few weeks, please. Inside, Mark looked up from the kitchen, spatula in hand. Everything okay? I turned back to Vanessa. You'd better come in. She stepped into the apartment cautiously, like she didn't want to dirty it. The smell of burnt garlic lingered from Mark's attempt at fusion pasta night. Vanessa's eyes swept the small living room. Mid-century couch, thrifted bookshelf, framed fabric swatches on the wall. And she smiled faintly. Wow, you've really made a life here. She called me inspiring over takeout that night. Said she'd been following my progress online, that she was proud of me. Tears welled up when she talked about regrets. dropping out of her marketing program, losing friends, failing at a few startups. "I've changed," she said. "I swear. I'm done being the girl who took shortcuts." Mark said she could stay on the couch. "She's your sister," he told me, squeezing my hand. "People come back when they're ready." But something in me remained rigid. Even as Vanessa cleaned the kitchen unprompted, folded laundry, brewed my favorite tea. Even when she laughed at Mark's jokes and asked about his startup ideas. She complimented the blouse I was designing for the spring showcase, called it innovative yet wearable. She said the fabric felt like confidence. She even offered to model for photos. I wanted to believe her. Wanted to believe she wasn't the same girl who once convinced me to give her my babysitting money and never paid it back. But that Friday morning, I came home early from a supplier meeting and froze in the hallway. Vanessa was in the living room, facing the mirror, wearing one of my original pieces. It was a soft gray wrap jacket with asymmetrical lapels and hand-stitched accents, one I had been saving for my upcoming portfolio shoot. Her makeup was sharp, her heels high. She posed, adjusted her hair, snapped a photo on her phone. I stepped in. "What are you doing?" She turned, startled. "Oh, hey, I was just borrowing it. I have a quick coffee thing with a contact from Wild District. Thought it might make a good impression." I stared at her. "That jacket isn't finished." She smiled sheepishly. I know, but it already looks incredible. You've got magic hands, Em." She left in a cloud of lavender perfume. I didn't know what bothered me more. Her wearing my design without asking, or the ease with which she made it seem harmless. That night, Lena's name lit up my phone. Her message was simple. "Is it true Vanessa is pitching your line to someone at Wild District Boutique?" I paid for everything, yet somehow I was the guest. The elevator chimed softly as I stepped out, heels echoing against marble floors. The venue was exactly what Mark and I had dreamed about over late-night Pinterest scrolls. Vaulted ceilings wrapped in ivy garlands, floor-to-ceiling windows letting the spring sun spill across pale oak floors. It was warm, golden, elegant, intimate without being stuffy. I clutched the envelope that had arrived yesterday with no sender name. Just the venue address and a time for a tasting. Mark hadn't mentioned anything, but I assumed it was a surprise. He'd been quiet lately, distracted, but I figured it was nerves. Weddings were stressful. I wanted to believe that. As I entered the main hall, laughter drifted toward me. Familiar laughter. I turned a corner and stopped cold. Vanessa stood next to Mark. Both of them leaned over a table lined with fabric swatches and centerpiece mock-ups. An event coordinator was gesturing animatedly between floral samples. Barbara and Ronald stood nearby, sipping champagne, perfectly at ease. What struck me first wasn't that they were together, but that my name wasn't anywhere in the room. Not on the sample menu, not on the welcome sign, not on the printed wedding timeline pinned to a corkboard. Instead, etched in elegant calligraphy across a white linen card. Vanessa and Mark, summer wedding preview. My throat dried instantly. I took a step forward. "Mark?" I managed, voice too thin, too fragile. He looked up, startled. Vanessa didn't turn. "Oh, Emily," he said. "I didn't think you'd, get the invite." "Invite?" Vanessa finally looked at me, her smile syrupy. "You made it. Well, this is awkward." "What the hell is this?" Mark ran a hand through his hair, eyes darting everywhere but my face. "It's not what it looks like." "Then explain it," I snapped. He glanced at Vanessa, who raised an eyebrow. "It just happened. We didn't plan for it, Em. It was late nights, shared ideas, realizations. Vanessa gets me in ways I didn't expect." I blinked. "You're marrying my sister?" "She's more than that," Barbara interjected from behind, placing her glass down with a soft click. "Vanessa understands the world you're trying to break into. She's charismatic. You've always been thoughtful, but not exactly a presence." It was the same tone she used when I was 12 and wanted to audition for the school play. The same dismissal. I felt it slam through me like a door closing in slow motion. Get out, I said, teeth clenched. Mark blinked. What? Get out of my apartment. You and Vanessa, tonight. He opened his mouth, but Vanessa was faster. She tilted her head, mock sympathy in her voice. You signed the lease, but he paid the deposit. Technically, we both have rights. My vision blurred. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just turned and walked. It was raining when I got to the apartment. Harder than this morning. An angry, relentless kind of rain. My bag slipped from my shoulder as I reached into my pocket for keys that felt suddenly useless. I tried the knob. Locked. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. I tried calling. First Mark, then Vanessa. Voicemail. I stood there, soaked, the envelope from the fake invitation now dissolving in my hand. The streetlight above flickered. I looked up, mouth parted, eyes burning, rain tracing down my face like salt water. And no one answered. The city I ran from became the place I rebuilt. The moment I stepped back into Portland, it was like walking into an old photograph, grainy, muted, and edged with dust. The air had that crisp autumn sharpness that cut straight to the lungs. I hadn't planned to stay long, just until I found my footing. But as I stood in front of Barbara's old house, keys trembling in my hand, something inside me whispered, "Start here." The house was empty. She and Ronald had moved downstate a year ago, and the realtor had left a spare key taped under the mailbox, probably assuming I'd show up eventually. I pushed open the front door. The creak of the hinges felt like an echo of my past. Dust coated the entry table where Barbara used to arrange fresh tulips. Always for guests, never for me. My old room was mostly untouched. A faded poster of a vintage Dior runway still clung to the wall, corners curled. The mattress sagged. My childhood desk sat in the corner, scratched but sturdy. I ran a hand along its surface, half expecting to find the etching I once carved beneath. EV. Invisible but here. I didn't cry. I was too tired to cry. Later that evening, Lena called. Her face popped onto my cracked tablet screen, voice warm but taut with fury. "They're using your sketches, Em. Exact replicas. They renamed the line Urban Silhouettes, but it's yours. The bias cuts, the charcoal palette, even the structured blazers." She sent the files, images from a pitch deck, documents filed with the Seattle Investor Group, press kit PDFs with Vanessa's face beside Mark's. My stomach churned. "They're pushing hard," Lena added. "But people are asking questions. I think you've still got leverage." I thanked her, numb. After the call ended, I sat on the floor in silence, laptop open beside me, sketches from years ago slowly appearing one by one. I hadn't drawn since the betrayal. The pencil had felt foreign in my hand. But now I opened a fresh sketchbook. I didn't bother dusting off the table. I simply drew. The lines came hesitant at first. Fractured seams, burnt textures, silhouettes built from breakage. Then they sharpened. The fabric in my mind was ash-colored, reborn from ruin. I scribbled one word across the top of the page. Ashes. That night, Rachel called. Barbara's former assistant, she had always been quiet, kind, too timid to voice her thoughts in family matters. Now, her voice held steel. "I heard what happened," she said softly. "I don't care what Barbara says. You deserve better. And I still have access to the design archives. Yours are time-stamped. You want them?" "Yes," I whispered. Rachel didn't ask for details. She just said, "I'll send them tonight." And one more thing. Barbara might have moved on, but she left all the old business contacts to me. Some of them still respect her name. I'll filter out the snakes. It was a gift I didn't expect, and one I didn't take lightly. Days passed in a blur of coffee, sketching, and silence. I didn't post anything. No stories, no teasers, no announcements. This time I would build in the shadows, like I always had. I visited Mrs. Janine, the local tailor who had hemmed every school uniform and curtain for this neighborhood since 1985. She welcomed me like a granddaughter. "Still got that hunger in your eyes," she said, pinning fabric to my mannequin. "Now you just need the fire." "I've got ashes," I replied. "That's a start." By the end of the week, I had 6 working prototypes and a list of potential suppliers. Rachel helped me set up a clean LLC. Lena helped with branding. We worked like ghosts, present but unseen. On a rainy Thursday morning, I was sketching in the kitchen when my phone buzzed. Rachel's name lit the screen. Her voice was breathless. "You won't believe who just booked a pitch meeting at Harper Apparel using your portfolio?" My silence was mistaken for surrender. That's what makes it useful. The espresso machine hissed behind me as I sat in the corner booth of a downtown cafe, hoodie drawn low, fingers tapping through digital folders that Rachel had decrypted the night before. The glow of the screen lit up the inconsistencies like runway spotlights. I scrolled past file names. Urban Silhouettes, Pitch Deck, Vanessa, Sao, Mark, Media Kit, Design Claims. Version 2. Half of the documents reference collections I had designed in college. Dated, documented, traceable. Yet in each file, Vanessa's name sat under Creative Director. No mention of me. Rachel had spent the night annotating every page, highlighting timelines that didn't line up. Her notations were clinical, color-coded, angry only in subtext. She had worked for Barbara long enough to know when image overtook truth. "Vanessa wasn't part of anything until after you left," she'd told me. "These are your prints, your patterns." The law wasn't on my side yet, but facts were. Later that afternoon, I met Mr. Grant at his aging office on Division Street. The family's old lawyer, now grayer, now slower, but still meticulous. He flipped through the documents like he was examining ancient scrolls. "She has no legal claim," he said at last, adjusting his glasses. "Not unless you signed rights over, and I see no such document." "I didn't," I said, "but they're already shopping the line." Grant sighed. "Then it's time to start drawing boundaries. Soft at first. Quiet." I nodded. That night, Rachel and I sat shoulder to shoulder in her tiny home office, screens open, lips pursed. Her dog snored under the desk while we brainstormed subtle moves. Nothing explosive. Not yet. She created a fake Gmail, a fake PR firm name. And from there, we leaked small, calculated interest in a new underground label called Ashes and Thread. No photos. Just one line, crafted from what they discarded. Meanwhile, Lena worked digital angles from Seattle. She scoured design forums, messaged industry writers with anonymous tips, and tapped into her old contacts at the Institute. She kept the whispers low, the intrigue high. And Vanessa? Vanessa started bragging. Lena forwarded screenshots of Vanessa's Instagram stories, thinly veiled boasts about curating edgy minimalism and disrupting legacy design models. One post showed a blurry mood board with one of my old sketches just visible in the corner. My handwriting cropped awkwardly but still legible. "Let her get cocky," Rachel muttered. "We need her desperate to be seen." So we baited her. I uploaded a teaser sketch, something bold but rough, onto an anonymous design blog under a pseudonym. It was titled Pattern 11A, Reclamation. The lines were unmistakably mine. Aggressive angles paired with broken seams. Raw, unsettling, unapologetically emotional. I left no name, no watermark. It trended within 6 hours. Fashion students debated the inspiration. An indie boutique in Austin reposted it. Someone speculated it was part of a lost collection. Others claimed it was AI. Then came the moment. Rachel texted, "Vanessa just emailed your sketch to a buyer. She's falling into it." They stole the design, but they couldn't wear the story behind it. I watched the live stream from my laptop, hands trembling just enough to slosh the tea I hadn't meant to drink. The feed stuttered once, grainy footage of a boutique bathed in low amber lighting, then sharpened. A small crowd had gathered inside Wild District Boutique, sipping champagne and swaying gently to a lo-fi soundtrack. The camera wobbled slightly as Lena adjusted her phone. Then she whispered, almost too softly, "She's coming out now." Vanessa stepped into frame. She wore the piece I had poured every sleepless night into. The dark, asymmetrical folds of fabric moved like smoke around her. That high collar, the frayed silk at the hem, the slightly off-kilter seam that whispered rupture and rebirth. I knew every stitch, because I had lived every stitch. There it was. Ash's pattern 11A, worn like armor by someone who had never been scorched. Vanessa smiled at the cameras, her voice falsely warm. This piece represents transformation, built from resilience, shaped by vision. She spoke like she had bled into the fabric. She hadn't. I had. Lena moved through the crowd, phone angled discreetly. In the boutique's office, she'd managed to get access to the pitch documents, and earlier, she had already noticed something strange. The sketch Vanessa submitted as proof of ownership was dated 2 weeks ago, but the original design had been published, quietly, anonymously, by me, 3 weeks prior. And copyright paperwork? Submitted yesterday under my name, under my LLC, complete with time-stamped versions and prior drafts. Rachel had triple-checked. The boutique owner, a severe-looking woman named Celine, tilted her head as Vanessa spoke. Behind her smile, something shifted. Suspicion. Discomfort. Celine leaned to her assistant and whispered. The assistant looked nervous. Lena zoomed in just enough to capture the exchange, then ducked out of view. On forums, things were already stirring. FashionTruths.net had posted a comparison. Someone named ThreadFreak87 asked, "Why does this look identical to the anonymous ashes and thread drop last week?" Another reply came fast. "Because it is. Someone's stealing." Then came the trending tag, "Number Ashes" by Emily. It wasn't loud at first, just a few murmurs, a ripple on the surface of still water. But ripples spread. Back at my screen, I scrolled through the reactions in real time. Designers I'd admired from afar reposted the sketch. Some added comments. "Whoever Emily Harper is, she's got an eye." Another, "Vanessa might wear it, but it bleeds someone else's grief." My throat tightened. The boutique's live stream cut out for a few seconds. Then Lena texted, "Just found something. Stay online." Minutes later, she reappeared in a side hallway, slightly breathless. The camera shifted as she fumbled with her jacket, then steadied. The sound was muffled, then clicked into clarity. She had found a recording device tucked behind a stack of promotional flyers in the boutique's back office. It had a dated label taped crudely across the side. "Split the company 70-30, but she doesn't know yet." Lena didn't say anything. She didn't have to. I stared at the screen, heartbeat rising. Vanessa wasn't just stealing my designs. She was being played too. A lie needs maintenance. The truth only needs time. Vanessa's empire wasn't built on creativity. It was built on performance. And now the cracks were showing. Her press appearance the morning after the Wild District event was clipped, rehearsed. She stood against a backdrop printed with soft branding. Roses, beige tones, words like elevate and transform. But her smile was brittle. Her voice, a half tone too high. "Every design is a collaborative effort," she said, hands twitching at her sides. "I lead with vision, and I'm lucky to be surrounded by people who bring that to life." People, not Emily. Comments under the stream were ruthless. Why won't she name her design partner? Didn't that dress leak weeks ago under someone else's name? This feels staged. Meanwhile, in Lena's rented co-working space, the real collaboration surged forward. The walls were covered in legal pads and screenshots, each pinned with brutal clarity. Every document Vanessa had submitted was time-stamped later than mine. Every press mention was matched with contradiction. Rachel's printouts were annotated like maps. Yellow highlighter for stolen work, red for false claims, green for legally binding proof. At the center of it all was a single folder labeled Litigation File Harper v. Vaughn. Mr. Grant joined us via secure video, squinting into his camera with that measured calm I had grown to trust. So far, they've failed to provide any original drafts, he said. In fact, we intercepted an email between Mark and a freelance designer they tried to bribe for false validation. Rachel clicked, pulling it up on screen. From mark.bennett@harperapparel.com to robert.d.inks@gmail.com. Subject, quick NDA plus favor. Need you to say you helped design pattern 11A. $5,000 upfront. Just a signature. No real risk. The arrogance of it would have been laughable if it hadn't been so effective for so long. I leaned back in my chair, breathing evenly. They were cornered, and I hadn't even raised my voice. Lena walked in, holding her phone like it had just vibrated hot. I got the full audio, not just the clip. I stood. You're sure it's them? She nodded. Crystal clear, Rachel cleaned it up. Want to hear? Mark's voice echoed from the speaker, low and sharp. We split it 70-30. She'll never check the contracts. She's too emotional. Vanessa. Emily's not a brand. She's a phase. If we get to Harper Apparel's investors first, they'll follow us. Silence in the room. Rachel's fingers flew across the keyboard. That seals it. Collusion, intellectual theft, and now malice. It was time. Mr. Grant sent the filing that afternoon. Fraud. Copyright infringement. Slander. We had email chains, witness accounts, prior drafts, and, thanks to Rachel, Barbara's original records showing my work dating back a decade. By evening, notifications pinged one after another. Case number 4312, B, Harper v. Vaughn et al. Filed with Multnomah County Court. The press hadn't picked it up yet, but they would. Back in my apartment, I stared at the screen long after the sun had dipped below Portland's skyline. A new tab blinked open, my speech outline. I hadn't touched it yet. Then came the call. Mr. Grant's voice was steady. The court date is set, October 3rd. Are you ready to speak in front of everyone? Before I faced them in court, I stitched a new version of myself. The studio smelled like wood polish and fabric glue. Sharp, grounding. The walls were bare except for a large mirror and the hanging rails of final garments lined up in silent rows. They shimmered under soft light like coiled flame. This wasn't the old Emily, the one who sketched in the margins of math tests, or the one who let silence bury truth. This was someone new, someone forged. I called it Phoenix. Each piece in the line held a memory, a scar, a resurrection. There was the jacket with the exposed lining, threaded in copper silk to mimic burning embers, seams intentionally offset to reflect imbalance. A gown shaped like smoke, impossible to pin down, with one sleeve missing to mirror loss. Fabric choices told stories that needed no explanation. Charred grays, blood orange trims, layered textures unraveling into elegance. Rachel walked through the rows with her clipboard, marking adjustments. The press is setting up. Lena confirmed at least 3 boutique scouts are here. Also, she paused, lips twitching. Celine from Wild District RSVP'd last minute. My stomach knotted. Not from fear, from anticipation. Lena poked her head in from backstage. Lighting team's ready. You'll be mic'd for the intro, 5 minutes max. I nodded. We stick to the plan. Let the clothes speak first. I'll just clarify what they mean. What they meant was simple. I survived you. The lights dimmed. A quiet hum spread across the venue. A modest industrial loft with folding chairs and no red carpet. I hadn't wanted spectacle. I'd wanted sincerity. The music began. Low cello, then layered with synth. One by one, the models walked. No narration, just design after design rising from pain like steam from a cracked sidewalk. People didn't clap right away. They watched, leaned forward. Some tilted their heads like they were trying to hear what the fabric was whispering. After the final model exited, I stepped out under a simple white spotlight. I didn't have a speech, just a truth. Phoenix is the story of becoming something else. After. Not instead of, not despite. After. My voice didn't shake. Everything you see here is original, documented, certified, and mine. Silence, then the first clap. It multiplied. Backstage, Lena handed me her phone. Vanessa had posted, multiple times. The latest? Some people will do anything to steal a narrative. Let's not forget who brought ashes to life. I laughed, breathless. She's spiraling. Rachel, scanning the metrics, nodded. It's trending. Not her. You. Phoenix is exploding online. More messages pinged. Reporters wanted interviews. Celine left her card with a note scribbled. Elegant rage. Call me. Then Lena pulled me aside. The board at Harper Apparel wants a private mediation hearing. Before the trial. They received the audio. They've seen the sketch timeline. They want your side. Officially. I stared at her. That's fast. They're scared, she said. Vanessa's been unraveling in real time. Mark hasn't posted since yesterday. My phone buzzed again. A social media update. Vanessa Vaughn. This is war. And she started it. I turned the phone over, letting it rest face down on the windowsill. I didn't need to see what came next. I'd already designed it. The courtroom wasn't a fashion stage, but everyone wore a mask. The heavy wooden doors of Seattle City Court creaked as I stepped inside, the press swarming outside like bees around sugar. Inside, though, it was cold, emotionally and literally. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, casting a sterile glow across the courtroom's high ceilings and polished benches. No music, no soft spotlight. Just the harsh, impartial silence of justice waiting to be summoned. Vanessa sat at the opposing table, her posture rigid, hair tucked flawlessly behind her ears. Beside her, Mark shifted in his chair, eyes down. Neither looked at me. I didn't need them to. Mr. Grant placed the case file before the judge. A precise, cold maneuver. Your Honor, this case concerns 3 counts: copyright violation, professional fraud, and public defamation. His voice echoed, sharp as scissors. We will provide evidence of prior ownership of all designs marketed under the brand Ashes, including time-stamped digital files, original sketchbooks, and verified drafts submitted under the LLC Emily Harper founded, months before Ms. Vaughn filed any related materials. Judge Reynolds raised an eyebrow. And what of the recordings your brief references? Mr. Grant nodded. We'll get to those shortly. Attorney Davis, Vanessa's representative, rose next. Her voice was smoother, almost condescending. Ms. Vaughn maintains that the concept for Ashes was a collaborative effort. While Ms. Harper may have executed the drawings, the vision was jointly developed. I didn't blink. The mask she wore was polished arrogance. Mark stayed silent, shoulders hunched. When Davis gestured toward him, he glanced up briefly. Eyes bloodshot, lips tight. But said nothing. Not yet. The first recording played through the speakers, Mark's voice saying, "Split the company 70-30, but she doesn't know yet." The courtroom didn't gasp. It held its breath. Vanessa didn't flinch. Mr. Grant passed another folder to the court clerk. An itemized report matching sketch timestamps to file logs, all predating Vanessa's boutique showcase. These aren't rough ideas. These are finished designs, with annotations, revisions, and submission certificates. The judge examined a few samples. Davis stood again. Intent doesn't prove authorship. Mr. Vaughn has stated— Mr. Vaughn. The judge interrupted. Will speak for himself when called. Mark looked like he might melt through the chair. The session recessed briefly. The press swarmed the hallway, but I stayed inside, still as stone. I didn't want their words. I had my own. When the court resumed, Mr. Grant called Lena. She walked up confidently, wearing a navy blue blouse that matched her purpose. Please state your involvement, the judge asked. Lena smiled faintly. I was present at Wild District Boutique during the Ashes launch, acting under press credentials. I recorded the event. I also discovered the hidden device containing the audio that's just been played. And how did you verify its authenticity? Grant asked. She gestured to a flash drive. Time-stamped. I handed it to Ms. Harper the same night. I have the chain of custody notes. Davis objected, but the judge overruled. And did Ms. Vaughn ever admit to you that the designs were hers? Grant pressed. In fact, she avoided any direct claim when questioned. But her assistant let slip that the designs looked like the Quiet Sisters' stuff. Lena sat down. Her words stayed suspended in the air like smoke. The judge looked over the evidence once more. We'll adjourn for the day. The court will continue reviewing files and reconvene at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Chairs scraped back. Reporters whispered into recorders. I stood but didn't move toward the exit. That's when I saw Vanessa lean toward her lawyer. If she brings up Phoenix, she hissed, her lips barely moving, we're finished. It was the first time all day I saw her afraid. It wasn't just about who told the story first. It was who lived it. The second morning began in a strange, still kind of clarity. No nerves, no tremble, just resolve. I dressed deliberately, not for fashion, but for message. A deep burgundy suit from the Phoenix line, the seams hand-stitched, raw on the inside, pristine outside. Just like me. The courtroom was already humming with whispers. Reporters filled 2 benches. Outside, camera crews jostled for better angles. Lena waved from her seat. Rachel gave a single nod. Mr. Grant leaned over, voice calm. They'll try to stall today, play for delay. But we strike before that. When the judge called the room to order, I stood. Mr. Grant guided me to the witness box. Ms. Harper, he began, tell the court about Phoenix. I took a breath, steady and full. It's not just a line, I said. It's my life. Each piece represents a chapter I wasn't allowed to speak in. The ash-colored jacket? It's my 12th birthday, when Vanessa got a puppy and I got forgotten. The gold trim? It's the necklace my mother promised me but gave to her. Every stitch is a silence I turned into shape. A hush settled. The press stopped typing. Mr. Grant handed me a fabric swatch. And this? The final panel. It's from the dress I wore when Mark kissed me for the first time. The one Vanessa later wore to her boutique showcase. There was no need to dramatize. The truth stood on its own. Next, Rachel took the stand with a sealed document. This, she told the judge, is a signed confirmation from Harper Apparel's internal database. Emily's Phoenix collection was logged and digitally archived on July 14th, 6 weeks before Vanessa's event. Attorney Davis rose, flustered. That doesn't prove Vanessa wasn't involved. That's why we brought in the third party, Mr. Grant replied smoothly. An older man stepped forward, adjusting his glasses. I'm Professor Monroe. I independently reviewed both collections. He clicked a remote. The projector lit up. 2 side-by-side images. Phoenix glowed, structured, emotive, symbolic. Vanessa's line looked hollow in comparison. These are not variations, Monroe said. Phoenix has an emotional arc, consistent palette progression, and thematic depth. The other set borrows silhouettes, but lacks soul. It's the difference between an autobiography and a transcript. A few board members murmured among themselves. One even nodded. The judge leaned forward. Thank you, Professor. But the real turning point wasn't evidence. It was Mark. He took the stand reluctantly, gaze low. Mr. Vaughn, Davis prompted, please clarify your role in conceptual development. He hesitated, then exhaled sharply. Vanessa told me, he said, voice flat, to steal the mood of Emily's work. She said Phoenix is raw, use it. Everyone loves a survivor story. I didn't push back. There was no movement in the room. Even Vanessa's foot stopped tapping. The judge stared hard. You admit to intentional misrepresentation? Mark nodded. I didn't write it. I just sold it. My hands didn't shake. For once, he spoke the truth. And it didn't shatter me. It freed me. The press updated their headlines live. The sister who rose from her sister's fire. Mark Vaughn confesses to design fraud. Davis stood abruptly. Your Honor, given the new revelations, we request a delay to review deposition materials. Mr. Grant started to object, but I beat him to it. I rose from my chair, looked at the judge, and spoke clearly. I'm ready now. Let's finish this. The empire built on lies doesn't fall quietly. It crumbles loud and fast. They tried to keep it behind closed doors, but Harper Apparel's lobby wasn't built for discretion. The moment the board filed into the press room, eyes narrowed and lips pressed into strategic tightness, I knew the dam was cracking. I watched from the edge of the crowd. No need to speak. No need to gesture. The truth had been sown. Now it bloomed in scandal. Effective immediately, said Chairwoman Ellison, her voice echoing through the glass-paneled walls. Ms. Vanessa Harper has been removed from all current and future branding associated with Harper Apparel. Any products tied to disputed origin are suspended pending permanent removal. The flashbulbs burst like fireworks. I heard Vanessa gasp before I saw her. She stood near the elevator bank, red-lipped and stiff-backed, but the illusion had already shattered. Her blouse was untucked, her hair pinned in haste. Not the woman who swept into boutique showrooms, not the golden child. The reporters turned on her. Ms. Harper, do you have a comment? Will you challenge the board's decision? Was the collection ever yours? She didn't answer. She just stared ahead, eyes rimmed red, makeup trembling. Somewhere behind the curtain, Mark's voice rose in a panicked shout. Someone mentioned security. The double doors cracked open and he stumbled out, jacket wrinkled, tie missing. He looked more like a man fleeing a fire than a former executive. I built the damn rollout strategy, he shouted. I brought in Wild District. Vanessa was nothing without me, without either of us. No one stopped him from yelling, but no one listened either. The press had their headlines. The fall was already written. Back at Rachel's apartment, the screens filled with updates. Harper Apparel cuts ties with co-founder Vanessa Harper. Internal documents reveal fraudulent claims. Mark Vaughn terminated following scandal. Even Lena, usually poised and composed, grinned with grim satisfaction. Well, she said, sipping her tea, that's one way to clean house. But the collapse wasn't just professional. It bled personal. That evening, Mark found me. I was walking near the old Fountain Square downtown. Portland glowed soft and honeyed under street lamps. I should have ignored him, should have turned away. But I didn't. Emily, he called. Breathless, uncertain. I stopped. Let him come closer. His eyes, once confident, playful, sharp, were hollow. His shoes were muddy. A wrinkle creased across his collarbone, and he smelled like someone who'd slept in a car. She's gone, he said. Vanessa packed a bag and vanished. I thought maybe she'd call you. She won't, I said. She never does. I didn't mean... He swallowed. I didn't know it would go this far. I raised an eyebrow. She said we could make it better, that it would help your brand if she launched first, that it would legitimize everything. I tilted my head. By stealing it? He shook his head. I messed up. There it was. Not regret, not apology, just the unraveling of someone who finally ran out of ways to spin the truth. I lost everything, he said quietly. My job, my name, her. And I asked. He looked up. I smiled softly, not cruelly. Just finished. You both got what you thought you deserved, I said. I finally got what I earned. I turned, walked away. I didn't cry, not even later, alone. I had already shed those tears long ago, behind closed doors, in the quiet corners of childhood and betrayal. This moment wasn't grief. It was a chapter ending. When I reached my front door, Rachel had left the day's mail stacked neatly. I shuffled through. Utility bills, a small box from Lena with fabric samples. Then a heavy ivory envelope. Thick, embossed, gold-trimmed. My name printed in elegant script. Emily Harper Paris Fashion Showcase. Guest of honor. The past hadn't vanished, but it no longer weighed me down. I stood beneath my porch light, invitation in hand, and smiled. Not out of triumph, but out of peace. I no longer needed them to see me. I had seen myself. Sunlight filtered through the slats of the old blinds, painting golden lines across the wooden floor of my childhood bedroom. Dust motes danced slowly in the air, as if time itself had slowed to let me breathe. I sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by boxes I hadn't touched in over a decade, each one filled with thread, paper, fragments of a girl who once whispered her dreams into sketchbooks no one cared to open. On the wall, where posters of Vanessa once hung, I pinned something different. My first solo cover in a small industry magazine. Just below it, a photo of my workshop earlier that morning. A half-dozen teenage girls, sleeves rolled up, eyes shining with focus as they cut, pinned, stitched, and dared to imagine something more for themselves. They reminded me of me, before the doubt, before the betrayals, before the need to prove I belonged. The workshop had started as Rachel's idea. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone anymore," she'd said. "But what if you gave someone else the tools to start?" So I did. We held it in the community center down the street from the old house. Mrs. Janine, the tailor who'd once hemmed my school uniforms, came by to offer supplies. Lena flew in with a box of fabric samples from Paris, rejected by boutiques but perfect for beginners. It was the first time in months I'd felt not accomplished, not validated, just content. Later that afternoon, Lena and Rachel joined me in the garden. "I've been thinking," Lena said, sipping iced tea. "What if Harper Apparel wasn't just a name anymore? What if we rebuilt it? From scratch with your values?" Rachel nodded. "Equity model, open hiring, profit sharing. We could pilot it here in Portland." I looked at them, two women who had stood by me when everything else collapsed, and I felt the weight of old grudges loosen. "I don't want to spend my life countering someone else's lies," I said. "I just want to build something true." They didn't try to convince me. They just smiled. As the evening sun sank lower, I climbed the stairs to my room. The creak of the floorboards under my feet felt familiar, comforting. I pulled out the last box from beneath my bed. Inside was a yellowed sketch pad. Barbara's. Her name was scrawled in the top corner, next to a faded ink heart. The first page held a sketch of a dress, simple and elegant, with handwritten notes. "Seems like stories. Hide strength inside." I hadn't remembered seeing it before. But as I traced her handwriting with my fingers, I realized something strange. That strength. That quiet structure. I'd been sewing it into my own work for years. Maybe unknowingly, maybe subconsciously. But it had always been there. I framed it carefully. Hung it next to my original Phoenix sketch. The past and present side by side. Hers and mine. Threads and echoes. And then I noticed the envelope. It had slipped between the sketchpad's pages, unopened. Cream-colored, soft-edged, and sealed with the old floral wax stamp Barbara used for birthday cards. The handwriting was hers. "To the daughter I never praised enough." My breath caught. I sat on the edge of the bed, turning it over in my hands. I hadn't thought I needed anything more from her. Not after the silences, the blind loyalty to Vanessa, the moments where I stood small in the corner of family memories. But still, here it was. One last page, one last voice. I didn't open it, not yet. I wanted to wait until the light was just right, until the noise of the past had faded enough for me to truly hear it. Outside, the leaves rustled gently in the wind. In the distance, someone was playing a guitar. I lay back on the bed, hands over my chest, envelope pressed against my heart. There was no more war to wage, no more stage to steal back, only the quiet hum of peace and the promise that every thread I chose from here on out would be mine alone. She took my fiancé. She took my wedding. But in the end, I walked away with myself. The gold-trimmed doors of the Paris showroom parted slowly, not with fanfare, but with reverence. Inside, the space was nothing like the over-designed chaos of American fashion expos. This was silence, stillness, poise. Velvet-lined benches, a central walkway bathed in soft amber light. And at the end of it, beneath an arched window that spilled sun onto ancient marble, stood my collection. Phoenix. Each piece stood upright, supported only by hidden wires and gravity, as if the clothes wore themselves. No music played. Just the sound of pencil heels against stone, the scratch of notepads, and the occasional whisper in French or Italian. The audience was small. Select journalists, respected designers, a few scouts. But every eye turned when I stepped out. I wore the final piece in the Phoenix line. A high-collared coat with a jagged seam slicing from shoulder to waist, like a healed wound made visible. Its fabric shimmered like coal under pressure, dark but alive. At the cuffs, threads of gold, unraveled from one of Barbara's old scarves, peeked out like forgotten whispers. Lena stood just beyond the spotlight, arms folded, eyes brimming. Rachel gave me a thumbs up so subtle it could have been a twitch. I exhaled and walked to the microphone. I design, I began, voice low but clear. Not to impress, I designed to survive. Each piece here was born from something I lost, and something I chose to keep. They listened. This line began when I had nothing. I continued. No studio. No name that meant anything. Only grief and a pencil. And instead of speaking out, I sewed. Instead of revenge, I shaped. This isn't a comeback. This is a beginning. The applause didn't erupt. It built slowly from nods and smiles, rising until the room echoed with hands clapping and heels tapping in place. Later, they gave me an award. The plaque read, L'émotion dans l'art, emotion in art. It wasn't about technique or trend. It was about truth. And after years of being erased, twisted, and overshadowed, I had spoken plainly and been heard. A man from a legacy label approached me afterward, offered a deal with too many zeros to count. We'll fold Phoenix into our prestige division, he said. You'll retain creative control. Technically. Technically. I smiled. I appreciate it, but I've already done the work of reclaiming my name. I don't plan on handing it back. He blinked. I turned and walked out the back. No photographers waited there, no red carpet or fans, only a stone corridor lined with ivy. The wind tugged gently at my coat. My footsteps echoed as I passed through shadows and light. Alone, but not lonely. I'd walked down countless aisles of schools, shows, family gatherings, even almost a wedding. But this was the first time the path truly belonged to me. As I reached the end of the corridor, I looked back just once, not at the people, but at the light. It was enough. The next morning, buried near the bottom of Le Figaro's culture section, a small article appeared. Phoenix rises. Emily Harper stuns Paris. Rumors suggest Harper Apparel's ex-heiress is preparing her own global label. I didn't bother cutting it out. I had already written my story. The lies that once glittered under spotlights eventually cracked beneath the weight of truth. Emily's silence became strategy. Her scars became style, and the courtroom where she was once dismissed became the place her voice reshaped her name. Like the final chord of a long-forgotten melody, justice may arrive late, but it resonates powerfully once it's heard. No wall of deceit can stand forever against the tide of truth. Like, share and subscribe if this story moved you. Comment 1 if you felt seen by Emily's journey, or 2 if you think her victory could have gone even further.